All right, if folks can let me know if they can hear me okay. Our eruption has begun within the last minute or two. So let me know if you can hear and see me okay. I'm kind of catching up on the fly. Looks like our vent is maybe a few hundred meters northeast of the May 29th vent. So folks can let me know if they can hear me okay. That would be helpful. We'll stick with some of the webcams here. And we'll just kind of play with this on the fly. So let me know if you can hear and see me okay. Susan says thumbs up, so that's great. I'm going to try to get a couple other things loaded here as we kind of work through this. Yep, good. Thank you for everyone letting me know that you can hear me okay. The crazy story here is I was getting ready to just do a regular Iceland update because it had been almost a week, and I was putting everything together, and in process of doing so went to one of the news stations. I won't pull it up right now, but they had issued a state of emergency in Grindavik because of some borehole changes and an uptick in earthquake activity. And as I was looking at that earthquake activity, I could see them shallowing. In fact, just a few minutes ago, there was a magnitude 2.2 right near here. And so I was scrambling to try to get the live stream set up so that we could start looking at this. So here we are in our next eruption for 2024. I guess this is what, our fifth or sixth? Can't keep track of it. January, February, March. There was one in May. And then this is our next one. Hard to tell from the webcam so far. I'll just kind of run you through this as best I can. And thank you to Susan and Amanda Joe for jumping on so quickly and helping me out here. But you can see some of the webcam views here. It's just kind of like dusk there in Iceland. The sun's more or less gone down, but not quite. So you can see the view down here lower left from Grindavik. You can see the plume here. This is Hagafelt, the hill with the big cracks in it. Power plant and the Blue Lagoon sit up and over here. And then you can see, of course, the Fissure eruption. What we might expect to see, and I think it's already happened just looking at it here, is this was likely to lengthen. So this is likely to get longer as the magma now has a vent and outlet to the surface, and all the magma in the subsurface system is working its way up through these conduits. We might see the intensity bump up a little bit, these fire fountains get a little bit bigger, and also see this thing lengthen in a northwest southeast direction. But we'll have to see how this kind of plays out. Real quick, I know we're watching the eruption and that's going to be our primary focus, but you can also kind of tell where things were going to be. Again, this was the earthquake pattern over the last hour or so, and it really just kind of started kicking up just right in this area here, just more or less east of Silingarfeld, south of Stora Stogafeld. And so that's the area where we're seeing the primary eruption taking place right now. So you can see these fissure eruptions feeding these fire fountains, which are feeding these lava flows, which are extending out presumably to the west and to the east. We'll have to see where they go based on the topography. And that'll be interesting to see, how long lived this one is. This eruption had more magma in storage than previous eruptions, but that being said, that doesn't mean we're going to see that entire volume of magma make its way to the surface. So we may or may not see all that material get up to the surface and actually erupt through the vent. So it was kind of cool to catch this pretty much when it happened. And we can go back here just a skosh. We don't even need to go back that far. Just here's 11 minutes ago. Here's the beginning of the eruption right here. So look just on the far left edge. Here's the old cone from the May 29th eruption. And as we go back, we're back maybe like 4 or 5 minutes here. So we really are catching this event right from the get-go. And you can see that a little bit more gases coming out here. So we do have this little precursor activity. Those gases are less dense than the magmas, so they're going to tend to come out first through the small cracks. But then the magma's got to break through. There's a little bit more gas spilling out right there. The magma's got to break through that last little bit of crust. And so, yeah, that's essentially the beginning of the eruption, even though we're not seeing the incandescent glow just yet. But there's the eruption beginning. And again, we're just looking back about 4 or 5 minutes ago. So, and now I can see some red in there. So you can actually see, and then there you go. So that's the beginning of the eruption, at least caught by this webcam right here. So let's go ahead and catch back up to the live view. And there we have it. And I'll try to do a couple other things over here on my other screen, maybe bring up a couple of other views that might be helpful. Yeah, so funny. I'm looking now at my title for this. Is the next eruption in Iceland about to begin? I think we can answer that now. I think the answer is yes. And I was scrambling because I just knew, well, I didn't know, but it seemed very likely that this was going to escalate pretty quickly, given the alert about the borehole changes, and then looking at the earthquake data quickly, and knowing that, with each of these subsequent eruptions, we have seemingly less and less time from that precursor activity up to the eruption. And so that's pretty much what played out here. I'm going to try to see if I can play around and find a couple other webcams. I'm sure there's several to choose from. They'll all be showing, more or less the same view. Well, not exactly the same view, possibly a little bit different, but they'll be all focused on the same eruptive activity. So yeah, kind of neat to catch this one right in its initial stages, if you will. Here's another webcam view here. So we've got a couple of these to look at. Yeah, so it looks like in terms of location, it is a little bit further north than, I'm looking at some of the live chats here, so thanks for jumping on, friends. And again, good timing for me here in Idaho. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, and so not middle of the night. So it actually worked out pretty well here. But it does look to be a little bit further north, which is good news because presumably now it could lengthen. It could lengthen to the south considerably. Maybe up to a kilometer or so. But at least for now, with the main vent opening here, that keeps the lava a little further away from Grindavik. Of course, that may or may not be good news. The other big issue, of course, is the proximity to the Blue Lagoon and the Svartsengi power plant. And so at this point, I mean, the good folks in Iceland have done all they can do in terms of putting up some mitigation measures and some structural features that can help preserve that critical infrastructure. And it's just a matter now of exactly how much lava comes out, if it lengthens, and exactly where that's going to go. And we'll have to see kind of how this progresses. What's funny is in preparing for the little, I was going to just do a regular, in fact, I kind of was dragging my feet because I was up into an hour or so ago, I was looking at the data and I'm like, oh, it's just going to be another update like the last 2 or 3 where I just sort of am repeating myself with, the earthquakes are on the way up and deformation looks good, repeating the same data that we've been looking at for the last 3 weeks or so. And one of the things I looked at was one of our viewers, of course, Bruce Garner, who's done these great projection systems. His earliest window for eruption was August 22nd, which is today. So, so good job, Bruce. Your projection system, your forecast system seems to be working pretty well so far. Doesn't mean he can predict the exact date, but this was the beginning of the window of time in which he thought an eruption might take place. So it's always tricky because it always takes a little bit more volume and or pressure with each of these eruptions over the prior eruption to actually the initiate the eruption itself. So now that we've got the vent open, we might still see some earthquakes occurring as this thing lengthens, but for the most part, the earthquake activity should drop down a little bit. If we just look at like the last 10 minutes or so, yeah, not a whole lot there. But if you go a little further back, you can see there was that big, I mean, I remember this popped up just not that long ago within the hour, this 2.2 just north of, pretty much right under Stora Stogafelt. With that shallow depth, if you saw that depth there, 1.1 kilometers, that was one of the ones that kind of had me worried. Bigger earthquakes, of course, mean more energy, and if it's a bigger earthquake with more energy, it has the ability potentially to open up a larger conduit and a bigger pathway to allow that magma to flow through. So, very cool. We'll just kind of see how this goes. I don't know how long I'll stay with you guys, but we have at least caught the initial stages of this, and we can see how this progresses moving forward. I'm actually gonna, let's see, I've got a phone call coming through from Johan, so let me mute really quick and I'll jump back on with you good folks. Okay, sorry. So I just got off the phone with Johan, who's on his way there from Reykjavik. So he should be able to get the drone up, presumably. I don't know exactly where we're going to be accessing the area. So we'll see what we can do. But it sounds at least promising right now that we can get a drone up and check this out while it's erupting and actually see where this might go, where this lava might go. A lot of these webcams are zoomed in, which is great. Nice footage. The camera's jumping a little bit on some of these because I think it's a little windy there. But I'm also interested in seeing the bigger view and seeing how this thing lengthens over time a little bit too. So some of these tabs I can close because I am not going to be doing an eruption or an update. We don't care about the GPS. The Met Office update doesn't matter much. This doesn't matter much. And here was the one thing that I was going to point out in my update, the state of emergency. So this came out within about the past like 30 minutes ago. They had evacuated people from Grindavik due to the seismic activity and some pressure changes in the boreholes around the power plant. So, okay, and I can also, yeah, how high is the magma shooting? I'll try to pay attention to the live chat a little bit here as well. Hard to say, but just knowing these typical fissure eruptions and just given what we know looking at this, I would guess we're looking at, and this is just a very rough guess, we're looking at maybe 100 to 200 meters. Maybe that's a little high, maybe about 100 meters or so in terms of the fire fountaining there. Could be a little less than that. Yeah, difficult to say because of with it being at night. We can start to see some of these lava flows are now, I'm assuming this one's looking to the northeast, so we've got this lava flow here that's pushing to the west. Yeah, I think it was Laura. I think it was actually a little bit further north of the old cone. Because when we went back, I'll show you one more time here. If we go back to when the eruption began, we can see that May 29th cone here, and it's further up the chain where we start to see that. Oops, I went a little too far there, but we start to see that eruption taking place. So I can't tell if it's along the trend of the old Sunuk's crater system. It might be a skosh to the west, but I don't think it's any further east at all. So um, very cool. So let's go back to the live view. Although I think watching this eruption begin is pretty neat as well. And I got a couple other folks. You know, funny now I'm getting messages from all sorts of people telling me the eruption has started, and I was just lucky enough to be kind of on it. Um, Yeah, and thanks to we have all our moderators on now. Awesome. So Lisa and Susan and Amanda Joe, thanks for jumping on to moderate. This kind of live stream's a little different than some of the ones we've been doing lately. If there are questions, maybe send those. Have Amanda Joe will aggregate those, and I can try to get to a few of those. But realize this is a live current event situation, and I'm digesting and trying to process and observe it, just like you. But typical eruption in terms of this lava coming out initially being very hot, high temperature, therefore low viscosity, so it's flowing quite readily. You can see that here a bit in the foreground. So these lava flows can move quite quickly in the early stages of eruption when we have high volume, high temperatures. So we can really get lava moving quite a ways outwards initially. Yeah, let's check out a couple others of these. Here's a nice one here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So there's a nice view there on this webcam, and you can see the lava kind of going over this little steep slope here, this little topographic feature, and you can see how quickly it's just rushing to the west in this case. And there's another lobe over here that's heading down this way. Very cool. It's pretty neat. We're catching this live, or of course, hoping for, while we're enjoying the spectacle of Mother Nature, we're also hoping for the best in terms of not just Grindavik, but the adjacent power plant and Blue Lagoon. And with it being at night, it's hard to say exactly where this is all going. Yeah, kind of tricky to say with it being dark. Had this gone up a couple hours, even an hour earlier, I think we'd have a little better handle with the webcams on exactly sort of spatially where we are. But you can see where there's some old cones in here, so it does look to me on this view like you can see the lava is actually almost filling in this old cone. So it does appear to be along the same lineament, the same trend of vents that erupted not just in May, but this would be similar to the February and also the December vents as well, and maybe the March ones too. So the same area we've seen most of the eruptions take place. There's the webcam zooming out a bit so we can kind of capture the full scope and the leading edge of this lava flow here. So, but you could, when we were zoomed in there, you can still see some of those little cones, those spatter cones, older spatter cones. So it does appear to be right along that same trend, which again was the most likely scenario. I know there was one scenario where it might erupt in Grindavik. There were people concerned about the fractures that had opened up near Hagafelt. That may actually be hard to tell, but that may actually be the old May 29th spatter cone, and you can see the lava just, I mean, it's still a fissure system. That's not a spatter cone erupting. The fissure has just cut through the spatter cone, and so the lava is just rushing down these steep slopes from that spatter cone. Pretty spectacular there. That's a great view there. Yeah, and Amanda Joe, if you can keep me posted as you can, as best you can, any sort of public safety news from Iceland, that would be very helpful. Yeah, if you guys can shoot some likes that would be helpful for the channel. If you're new, I'm geology professor Shawn Willsey. I have been tracking Iceland's eruptions and activity, I suppose, since last fall. And we just really were lucky today to catch this. I was literally sitting down to put together a just recorded video update on the latest news in Iceland. I started looking at some of the data. I went into one of the news feeds, and literally 3 minutes prior, they had posted a state of emergency for Grindavik. There was seismic and borehole pressure data that was indicating that a eruption was likely to begin very soon. I jumped over and looked at some of the earthquakes, and the earthquakes were happening quite quickly within the past 30 minutes or so, including a magnitude 2.2 as I was sort of scrambling to get the live stream set up, and then the whole thing kind of went off. That's why there's not, if you notice, there's not a thumbnail for this live stream, because I was just able to kind of scramble and get this put together very quickly. Okay, let me get a couple other things. Amanda Joe's, I mean, we really lucked out because she's leaving tomorrow, I think she said, to go north. So, and she's sending me some stuff here. So I'm going to open that as well. And again, we're just kind of doing this together, team. I'll try to provide whatever information and analysis I can. So she just sent me I'll bring this over real quick, even though I know that's beautiful eye candy right there. This latest news update: evacuation started, or eruption started. Grindavik's been evacuated. Eruption began about 9:26 p.m. and began following. Yeah, the powerful earthquake, that would be that 2.2 that I saw pop up. I wouldn't call that a powerful earthquake, but in the context of these generating these eruptions, that would be the case. So yeah, so this is a nice little website to follow here, because it kind of is a live blog, and so when there's updates, they'll throw those up there for you. Let's see, this is the one we were looking at here. Yeah, so I think what we're seeing here again is an older spatter cone vent. So you can see sort of half of this cone here. That may very well be the last spatter cone we saw erupt that formed on May 29th. And the fissure, the vent we see opening up today, runs right through it. So it's really reoccupying those same pathways, those same cracks and conduits that fed the last eruption and several of the ones prior. And what we're seeing here is not necessarily a spatter cone erupting, but the fissure system is erupting and has bisected or cut through the spatter cone, and so you're seeing some of the lava just kind of roll down the outside here. Different view here. So from town, all they can really see is the glow and the gases, but not the lava really kind of popping up above the horizon. And then we have our two webcam views here that show some different things. Yeah, Eloise wants to know if the Blue Lagoon has been evacuated. I'm sure, without checking, I'm almost 100% positive that evacuation has begun. They probably did have people there today, but probably once they alerted Grindavik to evacuate with those borehole pressure changes and with the earthquake activity, I'm sure they also evacuated the Blue Lagoon. Tony wants to know, how do the boreholes work predicting magma movement? Well, it's somewhat proprietary data in that the power plant is the one that has the access to it. So they have the boreholes that go down that tap the hot water that they use to generate the geothermal power. And the way I understand it is you can put pressure transducers or pressure instruments down at the bottom of these boreholes that can detect pressure changes. Now, not all the boreholes indicate or show that there's been a change, but there's some boreholes that are maybe closer to the magma plumbing system that have been able to detect these pressure changes, and they've used this a couple times in the last few eruptions, where they can detect a notable spike and change in pressure, and we've actually seen that that coincides pretty nicely with the onset of the eruption within some window of time. And in this case, it was within, tens of minutes, if that. So that cut cone is not the latest. The latest is more to the south. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't know which one that was. I was sort of guessing based on kind of spatially where I think we are, but I might be off a little bit. But nonetheless, there's some older spatter cones in here that are getting bisected by the fissures. They're getting sort of coated with more lava, and some of them may get, either destroyed or buried. We'll just kind of have to see how this goes on. So thanks for that question, Tony. Yeah, and I'll try to keep tabs on the chat at the same time as well. Yeah, but we've got these flows that have come out to the west and presumably to the east, but we're not as worried about those flows off to the east because there's a lot of space over there for the lava to pool, and there's no infrastructure there. And there's really no way, unless a tremendous amount of lava comes out of the ground, for any of that material to even make its way, to the coast, I suppose, or yeah. So we might look here. One of the things we like to get early on in an eruption like this is get a good map location for exactly where the vent is. We want to get an estimate of the length of the vent, which we could sort of do eyeballing it with the webcam, but we want to get some good measurements there. And typically what might happen is they'll get the Coast Guard helicopter up, or some other aerial equipment up that'll help us with some of that information. Someone says it was just another 2.2. Yeah, so now we've got, just in the last few minutes, you can see 3 2.2s, or 2 2.2s and 1 2.3 just to the northeast. This may be part of the lengthening of the system, so this may actually be where it's lengthening off to the northeast a little bit. So thanks for sharing that. We're just kind of doing this all together here, folks. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll wait till we hear back from Johan. I should probably do a couple things on my end to make sure I'm ready to go. He will likely be sending me a link so I can get in on the flight there. So if you're new to my channel and kind of this sort of scene, we have a good relationship with a company called Nature Eye, and they have drones and a pilot there on the ground who will launch a drone that we can get some great footage with, but I will actually be able to operate and control that zone here remotely from my office in Idaho. So I'll actually be able to fly the drone over the area. I might let Johan do it because he's a little bit better pilot than I am. Well, not a little bit, a lot better. And let me grab a quick drink of water. Anyway, so that is a great partnership, and that will allow us to see a little bit more about exactly what's going on with this eruption. So right now we can see these lava flows, excuse me, still coming at pretty high velocities here down to the west, flowing quite fluidly. These ones over here in the middle foreground are a little bit more sluggish and slow. The ones here to the left foreground moving a little bit more quickly, probably higher volume associated with those. And it looks like, yeah, we've got, seems like it's lengthened a little bit. I'd be real interested to know exactly what the length of that is right now. Cool, but yeah, thanks everyone for jumping on. And we'll do this flight here in a little bit, and we'll just kind of keep tabs on this. Let me send a quick text to my wife telling her I will not be making our appointment this evening. Okay, we'll be flying drone with Nature Eye. And then I need to let my son know he needs to go pick up his mom probably. We're down one car. We got one car in the shop. You need to get mom from school around. Eruption started. All right. All I have to say tell my family and friends is eruption started, and they kind of know what's going on, and I'm going to be a little bit busier. So, but thanks also to our moderators for jumping on so quickly, especially Amanda Joe, who's over there in Iceland and was able to get to her computer quickly. So, and then let us know, our good friends in Iceland, as you maybe hear and have your ear to the ground a little bit better than I do in terms of if they're going to get a Coast Guard chopper up at any point, if there's any additional data, if we can figure out where the flows are actually going, that would be most helpful too. If you could just send me some of those links. And presumably, let me get us over to Iceland off this view. But presumably, if we just look at the map and just spitball some ideas really quick here, let's take off that. If we have these if the eruption seemed like it was somewhere in this region right here to me. So presumably we're going to have a lot of this material, but the fissure has some length to it, so it's very likely some of these flows are already coming around the south side of this hill, Selingarfelt, and running into this defensive berm here. And it's also possible we've got some moving around the north side, which we've seen before as well. So we'll have to kind of just keep an eye on that. But it's pretty flat topography other than those hills that are kind of sticking up there. And yeah, some folks thinking that it's really lengthening. Yeah, if you pick any one camera that kind of shows the whole length of it and then take the time back a little bit, you might be able to actually see it lengthening over time. Pretty typical behavior. I think was it the last one that was a little over 2 kilometers in length? I can't remember all the details there, but pretty typical behavior there. Easiest, calmest chat room ever. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be complacent about it. This is exciting. There's also, of course, the anxiety, I suppose, a bit, knowing that we have the town nearby and we have the power plant and the Blue Lagoon. But compared to what we went through in December, in January, with some of those eruptions, where a lot of this was unknown, where the defensive berms were either partially in place or not fully in place, this is a little bit more relaxing. Excuse me. We've seen this before. Everything about this eruption so far looks very cookie cutter to what we've seen with some of the other eruptions. That being said, we do need to be ready for the possibility of something we haven't seen, something a little bit different. But we're going to hope that things turn out pretty well. Yeah, so if you came here hoping for, doom and gloom, the sky is falling, Iceland's going to get cut in two by this eruption, then you're in the wrong place. You should go find the alarmist channel on YouTube, wherever that may be. And then let's keep checking out the earthquakes, because this is kind of interesting. So now we've got, over the last little bit here, several of these 2 and above quakes. Let's go ahead and take out the small ones and just look. So just within the last 30 minutes, we have 6 magnitude 2 quakes that have popped up here, possibly again due to lengthening of the system. Let's go ahead and look at the ones, and let's give that like an hour or so. Yeah, so you can see, and this is what I'd seen, a few hours ago, was just this incredible clustering of quakes, both in space and in time. These all took place really quickly within just an hour or less, and that's always fairly indicative of something bigger happening. And many of those quakes were somewhat shallow. So The gas plume is usually visible from Reykjavik. Yeah, I'm sure folks in on the peninsula are getting. You can see the glow from some distance away with the night falling now. You can probably definitely see the glow. Yeah, someone asked for a quick recap since we've got some people jumping on. Absolutely. So thank you for joining me. I'm Geology Professor Shawn Willsey. We have a couple of great moderators here on the live chat. So thanks to them for their help. But today, at about, oh boy, I forgot what time it was already. It was, let's see, 9:26 in Iceland, so that was about a half an hour ago, a little about 35 minutes ago. The eruption began. If you're okay with it, I'll take you back to the actual beginning stages of that eruption, so we can come back here and actually look at what things were looking like. Actually, let's go back to this one because I know this one works well. But we did see prior to the eruption, there was an uptick in earthquakes, so earthquake activity. So focus here. There's the old May 29th cone. Watch the far left side of your screen while I just kind of give you a quick recap here. But over the last hour or so, there was a significant increase in the number of earthquakes and in their intensity, concentrated in this area here. You can see a little bit more of the gases coming out right here. This is about 36 minutes ago. And then the eruption is beginning right here as we watch this recording from the webcam. So there's gases just really coming out. And as soon as we can see that first red glow right about there, there's the eruption beginning. So we had the earthquake activity, we had some borehole changes, some very quick rapid spikes in borehole pressure that were detected at the power plant. That triggered the evacuation of both Grindavik and I'm assuming the power plant and the Blue Lagoon. So people had a little bit of a window. They'd already begun the evacuations by the time the eruption began. It begins at a single point, but then it starts to lengthen along the axis of the fissure, along this weak zone that's already been busted up. It looks like the eruption is pretty much exactly over the same zone and area where we've seen some of these previous eruptions, the May 29th eruption and some of those other ones prior. So there's a nice little recap of exactly what that looks like as it began. We'll go ahead and jump back to the live view here. And that's kind of where we are. We do have our good friends from Nature Eye. Johan is driving from Reykjavik down to this area with the drone, and hopefully we'll be able to get the drone up in the air within the hour or so. Excuse me. I'm not sure where he's going to launch the drone from and where he has access. He and I had a very brief conversation, and he was already on his way when I talked to him. Amanda Joe tells me the fissure is opening to the north and south. No known length or amount of lava being erupted. Flow rate is estimated at 10 meters per second. So just as we suspected and pretty much saw visually, the fissure is getting longer, or it has gotten longer over time. Maybe it's at some point it won't get any longer. It can't get longer indefinitely. And we've got some preliminary estimates on the speed or the flow rate of the lava, at least at some points. Obviously, it's not flowing the same speed everywhere, but maybe up to 10 meters per second, depending on the specific location. Fissure now estimated at 1.4 kilometers in length, Amanda Joe says. Thank you for that. She's much quicker with the computer than I am. And someone says they've got a helicopter up. Yeah. Yeah, Tim, it wasn't 10 cubic meters. Well, I guess it was 10 cubic meters. I didn't know. Yeah, I was unclear if Amanda Joe was giving us the speed of the lava, 10 meters per second, the velocity, or 10 cubic meters per second, which would be the volume, the output, how much lava is erupting at the surface. She says it seems to be expanding more to the north than to the south, which is good news. That's good news for sure for Grindavik. and may or may not be good news for the power plant in the Blue Lagoon. Ultimately, their fate is sort of dictated by, I suppose, how much lava comes out and how well those defensive berms do their job. So just checking out a couple of the other views here, and maybe I'll pull up a couple more webcams that we can look at. And thanks again for joining me here, friends. We'll just check this all out together. And let's maybe pull up one more camera. I mean, what's great about the time we all live in is they have so many webcams focused on this thing here in Iceland, and we're able to see it from not just one vantage point, but oftentimes multiple vantage points, which is pretty awesome. So I'm just pull up, see if I can find a couple other webcams that might give us a little different perspective on things. Now Mandijo saying the estimate's around 1.5 kilometers long in terms of the fissure length. Here's a little different view, I think. So a little bit more zoomed out, but you can see the expanse of the flows here moving really quickly. And then in this view, they go behind this hill here, which I'm assuming is Silingarfeld. You can see the outline of it right here. I think that's true. Let me try a couple other cameras. And we'll see how these work. Several of the news agencies have cameras, but that one looks a lot like the other one. Yeah, that one's almost exactly identical. So we have those cams. Our good friends from Live from Iceland has their cameras as well. There's a nice close-up of everything coming in. Anything else I'm missing here in the live chat? Yeah, Montana, Doug. The steam and such that you might have been seeing coming out of the area was not an indicator of the eruption location. We just still have a lot of hot rock in the subsurface below those areas, and then we have all those fractures that allow some of that, possibly a little bit of volcanic gas, but mainly that steam and water vapor to come up out. And so that's not a real helpful predictor. The real helpful thing, and this was the main thing I had told folks to focus on as we were preparing for this eruption, was the earthquakes. That the earthquakes would come quick, which they did. They would be clustered tightly in terms of a specific area or region, so spatially, which they did, and they would be clustered in a short, in this case, a very short period of time, or temporally, which again they did. And so those were the big factors there. And then I said, and then the other thing you might do is just watch the webcams and perhaps be able to catch it. And luckily, that all pretty much worked out and played out in exactly that manner, where luckily I was able to be at my desk, able to capture this thing from the get-go. Let's see, Amanda Joe's got something for me. A good webcam, she says. So let's try this one. Oh yeah, this is a nice one. Thank you, Amanda Joe. Let's go ahead and throw this one over here in the mix. So here's the view from the top of Silingarfeld. So now we're looking northeast, or northeast, purely northeast, I would guess, at the extent of the fissure, and then we can see also the expansive lava flow here. Fissure it goes beyond the field of view there, so we're not sure exactly how much further it extends there, but that is a nice view. And then let's I'm going to pull up the Met Office stuff as well, so we can check on that. So this is some of apparently they do have the Coast Guard helicopter up Don't know if there's any video available for that, but there is at least a couple photos. So here's a photo. Oh, here we go. This is what we wanted, at least what I wanted. Hopefully you wanted it too. A map showing where the fissure is. So this is this 1.4 kilometer length right here. Here's Selingerfeld power plant, the Blue Lagoon over here. I'll make that a little bit smaller so you can see the full extent of the map. Grindavik's obviously down here to the lower left, and that shows us more or less where that is. So we can expect, I would expect then, if this is the location of the fissure, that most of this lava, and the purple I'm assuming shows the eruption back in May, or some of the other eruptions. Let's see, is there a, no, there's not really a key to that. But most of the lava for this eruption we're looking at now, my guess is it's, as it laps up against Selingerfeld, it's gonna pour and move around the north side, which means, and this could be a bit of a problem, because remember right here is where we had some of the spillover, right? In the waning stages of that last eruption, we had some lava spill over the berm, which was, the lava was pretty much up to the top of the berm, and some of that lava spilled over. And I know they've been doing a lot of work to refortify and re-erect that defensive berm, but that'll be kind of the critical point there. And then remember too that, it's not necessarily going to follow the same path, that these last lava flows create their own topography. They might fill in this case, this was the February eruption that took out the pipeline. This filled in a small little channel, and this may now actually be the high point, such that when we get a future eruption, maybe it goes along the margins of that, or as we saw with the May eruption, actually flowed right over the top of it, so it was still the lower path, or at least the preferred path there. So we'll have to see how all that looks moving forward. So again, a couple of views here. Just kind of scrolling through these, just seeing what catches my eye. And yeah, let's see, anything else in that? Let's open up another tab with the Met Office. If I can type. And we'll want to make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, eruption has begun. They got these first couple pictures here. They do a very nice job, I think, the Met Office does, of getting these quick hitting updates out, these just text updates in terms of just, written information. So there's Grindavik out here in the distance on the far right edge of the photo. There's the fissure, so we're looking more or less south, or a little bit southeast there in that instance. So presumably if we kind of keep checking, we might get more updates here on this. And then, yeah, so quite a few we've got, I can't count that high, like 8, 9, 10 or so 2 to 2.6 earthquakes within the last hour that have popped up in there. So okay, so now we've got a website, thank you Amanda Joe, that shows us that's live from the air. So let's see if we can pull that over here. And so here's some of the actual live footage here. So this is presumably from the Coast Guard helicopter. That's probably looking to the south. And this is, I think, the west. So these are the flows coming over that little escarpment. Remember that little steep hill we see there? Remember that how bright the orange color is going to indicate the temperature to some degree, how hot it is. So we're seeing the leading edge. It's starting to slow down a little bit now that it's moved this distance. This may be a kilometer or so, but we're starting to see a little bit of possibly the leading edge slow down, and that's common when the lava first comes out. It's sort of channelized, but as it spreads out over a larger area, it's hard to maintain that same speed, when it's dissipated over such a big area. Yeah, so you can see a little bit of offset right there. So that these fissures, it's not one continuous crack. See how this one is in front of the one behind it? So it's a what we call en echelon. One sits in front of another. They're a little bit staggered, very common, both with fault systems, fracture systems, and fissure systems like this vent here. But more or less continuous over this distance, which may now be, yeah, at least 1.5 kilometers or maybe closer to 2. Yeah, someone says looks like 2 fissures. Yeah, it could be several. It looks like, one, there's overlap here. There's a second one. There may be a little bit of a step over on this far left edge. So there may be 3, 4, 5, 6. And it looks like there might be a little step over right here. But it's all fed by the same conduit there. There's where some of that old spatter cone was there. So that is kind of at the south end, it looks like. Yeah, so it looks like this is their live programming here. So good stuff. I'll kind of keep an eye on that over here. We probably don't want to watch the talking head. Oh wait, they went back to the helicopter cam, so let's go back to that. Now it looks like they're maybe flying away, so we might be losing the feed a little bit there. And yeah, they're flying. Oh, now they're kind of back to it. This looks like the webcam view, though. This is not the helicopter. So thanks, Amanda Joe. Appreciate that. Okay, so what else do we have going on here? We've got eruption. Earthquakes over the last couple hours. And just kind of waiting to see like how long this will erupt. Where will it go? Let's see, question in the live chat from Jan Scott. Is the lava flowing over an edge since there looks like a waterfall in the flow? Yeah, so you can see that there's a topographic drop. The lava's flowing along this surface, and then there's a steeper hill or slope or escarpment that causes the lava to accelerate down onto the next little patch of ground there. So you can see that. Cool stuff. It's great we have so many folks on here. And again, this whole thing transpired very quickly, and from my vantage point, well, somewhat organically and fortuitously. I was actually getting ready to record one of my more typical Iceland updates, where I just kind of look at the seismic data and kind of walk you through everything, since it had been a good 5 or 6 days since my last one. And in the course of compiling the data, I saw the alert that the authorities had put out for an evacuation of Grindavik based on the borehole pressure changes and the seismic data. And so that kind of caught me as like, wow, that's something happening. That's a rapid acceleration over what we've seen the last few weeks. Then I started looking at the earthquake data, and it was changing as I was looking at it. I literally saw the 2.5, whatever it was, near the Stora Stogafelt, just to the north, while I was watching it, and knew something was likely to happen very soon, and debated over whether just to record the video update and then see what happened, or to actually start live streaming. And literally maybe a few minutes before I got the live stream up and going, that's when the eruption began. But we were able to show and catch a lot of that with the webcams there. Okay, so so here's some new stuff from the Met Office. Thanks, Amanda Joe. They've just got like a little time lapse here. So we're looking to the south. Here's the power plant on the far right. Blue Lagoon's just beyond that. And they've got just this time lapse set up where the eruption feeds these lava flows. There's that steep escarpment, that little drop in slope we talked about, and then the movement of the lava to the west. So we've seen that one before. So just a little bit, they're just adding pictures and updates as they go. Based on these images, the lava flows travel about 1 kilometer in 10 minutes. That's pretty rapid. That's especially given how overall flat the topography is, that's pretty remarkable. It's not going to sustain that, but it's pretty interesting that it was moving, traveling and covering that much ground in that amount of time initially. It won't be able to sustain that, but now it's just a volume and time game pretty much. How much lava is going to pour out of this thing? How long is that going to last? And that will dictate to some degree just where all this lava goes. So, okay, live chat thing. And thank you for the folks that have donated to the channel. Much appreciated. Help out the moderators as well as myself. We'll see. I was supposed to go to a dinner thing with my wife and some friends tonight. That may or may not happen, and that's okay. This is good stuff. I'm going to send my 15-year-old son to in lieu of myself for the dinner date. All good stuff. Let's see. Native Texan, welcome aboard. New subscriber. Awesome. I thought the earlier predictions were off because a volcano could lower the gas pressure as events were not completely closed. What would your thought be on that? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think once we reach that critical, that 20 to 22 million cubic meters of lava in the system, magma in the system, I think everyone knew that was enough for the eruption to begin. It was just a matter of how much space, extra space, had been created since the last eruption, because with each subsequent eruption, there's more space created through earthquakes, through melting of rock, through just thermal elasticity. And so, I don't know. The earlier predictions, I mean, it's easy now to say that they were off because now it's erupting, but a week or two ago, I thought it was very likely it could erupt at any moment, and also thought that it could take several weeks. And so we're kind of, in that mode there. So, yeah, thank you so much for the donations, friends. Appreciate it. Someone says it's coming around the mountain. Should be at the North Power Plant berm soon. Ugh. So it's going to be tricky. Yeah, thank you, Ian Suzuki. I can't see all the folks. Carl Furstenberg, thank you for your kind donation to the channel. Yeah, so let's see. Let's just kind of keep tabs on this thing. We should hopefully hear from Johan soon and be able to get a drone up in the air. In the meantime, Amanda Jo is doing an awesome job at sending me information. So she's now got the first photo from the air where you can see Grindavik in the background. So let's check that out real quick. Yeah, this was the one we looked at on the Met Office page, I think. I think that's the same one, right? Yeah, it's this one here. So you can see Grindavik here and then the eruption. I think the one you sent me, Amanda Jo, is a little more clear and has a little bit wider view than this one, but it looks like it's the same photo. Thank you. Let's see what else we have. Whoops. Sorry, team. There we go. That's some pretty cool footage there. That one's nice. You can see these flows here. I mean, look at some of these flows though in the foreground. These little fingers and lobes are advancing pretty readily. Let me grab the next thing she sent me. Photo from the Grindavik exit on the Rekenesbrett. Let's see another photo. Yeah, so here's another photo from, this brings back memories. So here's a news article, and this is the road going down to the Blue Lagoon and the power plant in Grindavik. And I actually was in this little circle with a spotting scope on May 29th when the May 29th eruption began. The police they weren't allowing people through here, understandably, and we watched it from there. This looks a little more although ours was it was light because it was still May. This looks a little bit more awesome, I suppose, dramatic. So yeah, nice little view there. Thank you, Amanda Joe. Question from the chat: why would there still be magnitude 8 earthquakes after it started erupting? Yeah, let's see what's going on with the earthquakes. Good question. So if we just look at the last 15 minutes, there's a 2. We'll add in the 1s. Why not? Last 30 minutes, obviously a lot more. And the reason we might be getting more earthquakes, even some over here, is partially due. I mean, you're just changing the stress conditions in the region, right? So you have the magma moving up, which is generating some level of seismicity. Of course, as this thing was lengthening, as the fissure was lengthening, that may have been triggering earthquakes as well, as the magma's working its way into a narrow crack, but has enough pressure to widen and force that crack open. Then you can generate some of these earthquakes that way. And then you've essentially moved all the magma in whatever the storage system looks like in terms of the architecture of that. Now it's all moving up and into this vertical dike, which then manifests itself as a fissure eruption at the surface. And so you're seeing changes in the stress conditions throughout, right? We're injecting the magma into this. It's under a lot of pressure, and that's sort of pushing on rocks in the region and generating earthquakes. Maybe there's a fault or a fracture that was already under some amount of stress, and now you've just added a little bit more stress to it, and so those rocks break and fail and generate earthquakes. So hopefully that's a good enough explanation, but that's the best way I can explain it. So from one of the good moderators over at the Live from Iceland, the current heights of the fountains are up to about 325 feet. So yeah, that's about 100 meters, like I was saying, with some of the tallest ones up to about 740 feet. So that would be more like, what, 170-ish meters, right? No, it would be more like 200 and over 200 meters, whatever the conversion is there. You guys can figure that out. Some vents have been reused. However, the main eruptive vent was not reused in the initiation. So that's coming from one of the moderators on Live from Iceland. So perhaps this fissure system is not exactly on top of the existing cracks and conduits that produced the last several eruptions, but it's very close to it just based on what I'm seeing. So it may not be the exact same cracks at the surface. It's very likely following the same pathways in the subsurface, but then it might have broke a new fracture or crack to actually get to the surface. So great, thanks for asking that. A question from the chat by way of Amanda Joe: will this activity increase greatly, or will it be more of a stable, slow eruption? At this point, a good, what are we, maybe an hour into this, I wouldn't anticipate that things increase markedly. You might see a little bit more lengthening. I doubt you'll see the fountaining increase a lot either. It's likely to sort of stay close to this level for several hours, probably not tens of hours, if we use the prior eruptions as a bit of a marker, and a starting point for what we might see here. So yeah, good question. So, but it could stay sustained at this level possibly for a couple of days. But based on what we saw with some of the other ones, it's likely to wane a little bit, but we'll just have to see. I don't know is the best answer. All we can use is the history from these past few eruptions and our analysis and observations and measurements from those, and sort of apply that to what's going on now. So it'll be interesting to see if the fissure gets longer than what it was initially modeled or measured at. See if that gets any longer or not. And then Amanda Joe has for me a time lapse of the start from the Met Office. So let's check that out really quick. Um, that's the same thing I think we saw. Maybe that's a different one. Yeah, I think that's the same video we saw. And let's see here. So, thank you, Kate. Yeah, I've been watching the live chat for a little bit. Thanks for all those who were able to donate and help out. This is just fun to do. It's fun to just share with folks. Let's see. She sent me another webcam view. Yeah, so there's a nice one too. Oh, this one's helpful because now we can see the fissure. This is looking more or less northeast-ish from Thorpjord. There's Selingarfelt here, this hill, and now we can see that the lava flows, which initially were just disappearing behind the hill, now they're coming out from on the other side of the hill. So these very likely, if we kind of use this as a model, so we're looking from this hill here in this direction, and we're seeing some of these lava flows coming around the side of the hill, which means that they are possibly lapping up onto or close to the defensive berm. They might be out here more spatially, but they're at the same position sort of longitudinally as that. Excuse me. So thanks for sending me that, Amanda Joe. So yeah, now we've got oodles and oodles of views to look at. Right, so this leading edge here is the one that will be most important. And, you know, it's a bit of, on one hand, the eruption during the day is nice because you can see where things are spatially in proximity to each other. But at nighttime, of course, the incandescent glow is pretty spectacular. So I'm not sure which one is most ideal. I think from an aesthetic point of view, the nighttime eruptions probably look the best, but from a probably a scientific point of view, I kind of wish I could see this with the natural lighting until these are going. Yeah, these lava flows are still moving pretty quickly here. You can just look at that bottom left corner. You can see the darkened clots of partially solidified lava just sort of being rafted along and moved down these channels. Same sort of thing here as they drop over this little steep slope. You can see some of these darkened clots of lava that are partially cooled, solidified. Gives you a little bit of sense of the speed of these things as well. But this will be the thing to look for. We got some emergency vehicles down here along the road. Where this goes is going to be the big thing. Amanda Joe says the lava flow is very fast and is heading towards the road between Grindavik and the areas to the north and the power plant. But people have strengthened the defenses. This is a quote, but people have strengthened the defenses significantly, and we hope that that will continue. And that's from Benedict, who works at the Met Office. Another quote, presumably from him, right now it's not likely that Grindavik is in danger, but we can't say anything about that until things start to stabilize. Which I agree with, right? We're still in these very early stages of this eruption. It's still pumping out a tremendous amount of lava, and that could continue for some time. And so hard to say what's at risk, what's, what areas are likely to have to deal with these lava flows until we kind of let a little bit more time go by. And hard to know what the long-term forecast looks like until we do see things kind of stabilize a little bit. So all good points there. Let's see. Okay, so let me jump back on the live chat. Oh, you all been so generous with your kind donations. Thank you. Yeah, well, I do have a video from the beginning. I know some of you are just jumping on, and so how about in 2 or 3 minutes, I'll show you the beginning of the eruption, which is pretty spectacular. So let me check a couple things here. We should have hopefully hear from Johan soon about when we might get a drone up to look at things. Okay, and just got to make sure my son goes and picks up my wife. Uh, Thank you, El Grandes 12T, for your kind donation. Yeah, and you like the Pavant Butte episode. That's great. Okay, so quick recap. Let's go to, I think this was the one we were looking at. So we're less than an hour, maybe a little over an hour into this eruption, which began at I think 9:26 local time, and the eruption was there was some precursor activity to the eruption. We had some earthquakes that intensified in this area, and then we also had some changes in the boreholes over at the power plant. So if you look at this webcam view here, which is about an hour and 12 minutes old, you can see a lot of gas coming out on this far left edge. Here's one of the older spatter cones here. And then you'll see a little bit of a red glow here on right where my cursor is pointing here. That's when the lava makes its way to the surface right there. So now the lava is at the surface. The eruption has begun. That fracture is widened by the pressure of the lava. It's shooting up into the sky, and it starts to lengthen and progress. And so that's the initiation or the beginning of the eruption there. And it, it never gets too old to watch those, I think. So we had the eruption begin here, kind of just near about dusk or so in Iceland, just as the sun was getting ready to set. You can see that things were still pretty visible. It was still daylight out for the most part when the eruption began. And now it's obviously quite dark in Iceland with the sun fully set. This eruption is in the same place generally as where we've seen some of the last few eruptions. So I'm just going to move forward now to the live view if that's okay. But if you go to any one of these webcams and just scroll back the little time bar, you can see the onset of these eruptions. Let's go to let's see, where's the one that shows us that leading edge? That's probably the best one to watch for now. I mean, there's some fantastic views of the flows here. But this is what we're concerned about here is where this goes and if it stays on the side it should, in terms of not coming into the area. Because if the lava is able to breach or overtop the berm, that's a situation that could go south really quickly. The power plant and the Blue Lagoon sit in a very flat, almost like a moat. Like it's a low area. It's not like deep, but it's definitely lower than anything around it. And the lava could quickly inundate that area. More stuff from Amanda Joe. Thank you, Oscar. Much appreciated. Let's see, Amanda Joe. What do you got for me here? Oh, she's got all kinds of stuff. All right, let me share some of this stuff that she's sending me. Let's see. So, yeah, so a news story here. As far as saying he's in danger and always has been. Of course, this has been translated into English, so it might be a little bit lost there. Communications Director, Civil Defense, asked what the response is to the eruption that began. Our work is now to assess the situation. How big is this going to be? Where's the lava? Which infrastructure is at risk? And do the defenses work? Perfect. I couldn't say it any better myself. So they're flying over it. It's important. The information is important to get as soon as possible to know what the progress will be. Yes, Fartsinghi's position's always been in it's been risky in terms of how it's situated. That's why we're trying to protect it. Yeah, so thanks for sending that one, Amanda Joe. Um, and let's see, it looks like they panned over to the right there. There's that cone. I think that's the May 29th cone. So you can see that the eruption site is not on axis with that, but a little bit to the east. Here's a short video she sent me that has the helicopter overflight. So quick little video here. And not sure exactly what time that was taken, but obviously within the past hour or so. That's kind of looking through the gas plume there. There's the fissure there on the right. I think that's looking southwest, probably. Winds are out of the north. You can see the extent of the flow there. There's that. So there, this is looking south. There's Grindavik there, and there's that little steep bench that the lava was flowing down and headed towards the power plant with this flow lobe here. So this is good footage here. And same look, this is looking more to the east now of that same, this big flow lobe moving to the west, coming off that little escarpment there. So that's like, that looks like that's the main one there. I think there might be another one to the north of that that's going north around Sillingerfeld. Not sure. A little bit of a zoom in there, looking at, you can see the offset segments of these two fissure systems. This one kind of dies down, and then this one picks up, but there's a little bit of an offset there. They're not perfectly aligned. Some of the lava channels there. And that's it. So that's a nice little video. Thanks, Amanda Joe. And then one, oh, so there's the leading edge there. And then she's got one more thing for me here. And maybe there was a Met Office update. Yeah, we saw that one. And let's see, do we have the, let's look at the Met Office update too. I should probably just leave this open. Okay, so here's a new map. Wow, so it's up to almost 4 kilometers. So it extended 1.5 kilometers in about 40 minutes. So the fissure system is much longer than we thought. So there's our map. So it extends from here all the way up to here. So it's going past Sillingerfeld and up and past Stora Stogafeld. And this makes sense and jives pretty well with what we were seeing with those earthquakes. We're seeing more of these earthquakes over the last hour. Here's Stora Stogafeld. We're seeing a lot of these to the north. That's because that magma's, very likely the magma's forcing its way through those fracture systems, widening them, and that's generating some of these bigger quakes over here. And now we've got a big 3.5 that's kind of off axis of these ones here. Still kind of down their ways, 3.6 kilometers. These ones are obviously much shallower. These ones that are associated with, that one's not, but some of these here. So that's pretty interesting there. So we've got this longer. So, and it could still be lengthening. So, I mean, we're still in the early stages of this. So the fact that it lengthened that much in that amount of time is pretty incredible. So what else do they say here? Still considerable seismic activity at the north end of the fissure. An earthquake of magnitude 4 was measured. I didn't see a 4. Was there a 4 on there somewhere? No, maybe they're just referring to that 3.5. I guess if you round it up, right, then it's a 4. So there's that one there. Yeah, the crack's 4 kilometers long, and therefore, yeah, it extended about a mile, 1.5 kilometers in about 40 minutes. Pretty remarkable. And that's probably why we can't seem to get a good webcam view that shows us the whole length of it. Is the whole thing is just so long. Okay, what else do we have here? Here's a news article from the power plant company that just kind of says, that hopefully they're well protected. They've got the defensive berms is 20 meters high, that they raised it significantly, so that's about 65 feet. And so they're hoping that will provide enough protection. So thanks for Amanda Joe for getting all those news items to me. Okay, back to the live chat. Sorry, friends, there was a lot of stuff that was sent to me there. How long is the fissure? We just answered that. I'm kind of scrolling back a little bit here. Yeah, and you guys are doing a good job of answering each other's questions. Much appreciated. Yeah, the Willsey wave will not be needed because the light stays on now. But yeah, some of us remember the good old days when I had to wave my arms. Yeah, the 3.5 earthquake, don't know what to make of it right now. So it's a bit in an odd spot. So very likely related to dealing with the pressure in the magma system, and there's maybe some older structures over here. Realize that we've got some other, so now they've upgraded it to a 4.2, so it is a magnitude 4. It was a 3.5, but now it's been upgraded to a 4.2. That's a good size earthquake. That will get your attention if you're anyway down there. So if anyone's in that area, there's likely people that felt that earthquake. As this lengthens to the north here, team, let's go to this view real quick. So as this thing, so we know the fissure extends beyond Stora Stogafelt. We had the earthquake over here, but the big danger with the thing lengthening to the north is that allows more of this lava not to flow so much east-west, but there's kind of a natural divide running east-west, and some of that lava could now start spilling to the north, and potentially, reach the road here from the airport to Reykjavik, and that would be a huge loss. That would be a big deal if this road here, Reykjanesbrat, was compromised. There's also a town here, Volkart. Now we're a long ways from getting lava that far, but that's one of the potential consequences of the fissure and this vent lengthening to the northeast, is that allows more lava to erupt in this area, and it would follow some of this easy topography down this way. You can see, if you can see my elevation there, I'm at about, I've got it in feet, apologize for the metric folks, but about 250 feet elevation here, and it drops pretty smoothly down to the coastline right there. So that's one potential issue there. I wish they used to have, with these earthquakes, the beach balls, the focal mechanism solutions that allowed us to analyze what kind of fault actually produced the earthquake, and they got rid of those some time ago, which is a little bit unfortunate. But the thing to do now, I guess, is now that we know this thing's lengthening, I would probably keep watching the earthquakes a little bit, see where they're going over time, because they've definitely moved to the north. There's the last 15 minutes. There's the earthquake data over the last 15 minutes. If we look at the last hour, and then, if we go back several hours, you can see they're further south, right? So you go back 5 hours, kind of like a mess in here. But it looks like the more recent quakes are shifting to the north, perhaps, and north and east, I suppose. So, okay, there's that leading edge of that flow. And let's see what else. What else we have from Amanda Joe, who's really the one. I mean, her and the moderators are working much harder than I am. I'm just sitting here reacting to things. A question from Iron M Town. There have been at least two quakes at above magnitude 2 near Vogar. How does that factor in? Let's see. So Vogar is the town up here. Um, I don't know what time frame you're talking. Yeah, there was a 2.3 here. When did this happen? Well, that's pretty recent. Yeah, 2.3 there. I think the main thing here is as the eruption progresses, we obviously have a lot of fractured rock in this area. This looks ominous because this is aggregating all the earthquakes over the last 24 hours. So let's maybe clean that up so it's not quite as scary. Although most of those are within the last 6 hours. So let's just go the last hour or so. That's still a lot of earthquakes. Um, I mean, that one's further away, and so it's definitely, well, not definitely, it's very likely related to, so we've changed the stress conditions here. So we've got all these rocks in this part of the Reykjanes Peninsula that have big fractures. There's lots of faults. We had two grabens develop north of Grindavik and through Grindavik over the last few months. So we have a lot of weak rock that doesn't take much stress to generate earthquakes. And so it's likely that we're seeing some of those changing a little bit as well. Manja Joe just said, let me take you guys back to the eruption. Magnus Tumi Gudmundsson, who's a geologist there in Iceland, sent a reporter a short message, but he's flying over the eruptions with the Coast Guard helicopter. He says the main eruption is on the north side near Skogafell, and there's no lava towards Grindavik, but it flows east and west. He does not think the eruption is bigger than the eruption that happened in May. So there's a report from one of the Icelandic geologists. So good news, not really no lava going to the south towards Grindavik, most of it going east and west, and the size of the eruption, at least at this point, does not look bigger than the May 29th eruption. So those are all, well, that's good news for Grindavik, and if it is indeed smaller in terms of volume, that's good as well. But the earthquakes are an interesting story right now because this is something I don't think we've seen with some of the other eruptions, especially on that scale. Like, let's remember that the energy needed to generate a magnitude 4 earthquake is exponentially much larger than anything smaller. So these, going from a 3 to a 4 is 32 times the amount of energy. So this magnitude 4 earthquake is the same as having the energy of 32 magnitude 3 quakes, which is pretty substantial. So I am surprised by that magnitude 4, both its size and its location. I'm not ready to jump to any conclusions. I don't think it's indicative of the magma moving anywhere. I think it's most likely a true tectonic quake that was maybe close to producing an earthquake, but this influx of magma and the change in the stress conditions kind of pushed it over the edge and generated an earthquake of this size. It'll be just interesting to see what happens moving forward. We're kind of in an area now. So let me just kind of get my bearings here. So let me take off some of these earthquakes, get rid of these messy ones. Yeah, so Stora Stogafeld here. And let's look one more time at this map. We want to look at the new map. That's the one we want to look at. We don't want the old map anymore. Yeah, so and you can see here, and this actually nicely shows, let me zoom in a little bit here, that there's that spatter cone. So that, I do believe that is the May 29th spatter cone. So it cuts right through the east half of that cone. But here's where you can kind of see it going a little bit off axis of the old 800-year-old Sunnakur lineament, these craters that are coming through here. So it does take a little bit different trajectory. But my point is that I wanted to see, let's look at the December eruption. Okay, so we're pretty close to the northernmost point of the December eruption, which more or less had fissures that were oriented this way. We've got something now that probably doesn't have all these staggered steps here, but might be encompassing a similar length from south to north. If we kind of compare this, you can kind of see that it ends, right at, the southern edge of Selingarfelt. This one goes a little bit north of Stora Stogafelt. And if you compare this to that Met Office map, pretty close. So we're looking at a pretty similar length. And that December one was pretty big. That was the first one in the series, and that was a fairly large eruption. Oh, where's Fagradalsfjall on the map? Good question. Let me add that for you. Thank you. Let's add in the Fagradalsfjall eruptions, which are way over here. So there's the 2021 to 2023 Fagradalsfjall eruptions over here. Here's the December eruption. That 4.2 or whatever earthquake is kind of in this area in here at the base of these hills. So, yeah, interesting. Interesting stuff. Very fascinating. Quick look at the eruption again. Pretty bright there, isn't it? That looks really bright. I don't know if that's just... Yeah, I mean, some of these are just really kicking up a lot of lava, as they say. Of course, probably best view is watching it advance here. It's not moving super fast. At least we're a long ways away, so it's hard to tell. And we can keep an eye also on the earthquakes. We'll throw in all the smaller quakes as well. And then let's take this down to like, well, yeah, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes is good. And just see kind of what happens here. So yeah, earthquakes might be interesting moving forward. It's not always the case. A lot of times once the eruption begins, the earthquakes kind of dissipate a little bit, but we'll kind of see what happens moving forward. There's still a good flow of lava here in the foreground with this view here off to the west. And let's get back to that main view right here. I think that's where I want to stick for now. Okay, let's see, questions or things from Amanda Jo. Let's see if she's got something else for me. Okay, so we've got a little news article from Professor Thordarson, and let's see what he has to say. So here's a quick little news article if you want to kind of follow along with me on this. So a nice photo. Erupt repeated content. Again, these are Google translated, so this is his quote, at least in English. This is actually just repeated material and what was considered the most likely that the eruption would start there, southeast of Stora Stogafelt, on that 500-meter long fissure where all the other eruptions have started except for the January one. Yeah, which is what, I always thought was the most likely scenario as well. He goes on to say when the initial eruption starts to subside, it probably goes to one or two craters like the previous eruption, and then those craters continue to grind somewhat with lava productivity. The eruption is in the best place. It is very optimal. The lava is flowing towards Stora Stogafelt and the road out of Grindavik as in previous eruptions. When asked, he says it's difficult to predict how long the new eruption will last. I would think that this will be a similar length to the last time. This initial phase will be maybe 3 to 6 hours. Then the eruption will start to reduce significantly, and the activity will be reduced to just certain parts of the fissure, and there will be primary productivity for some time. We'll just have to see what happens. So, yeah, I agree all around. We're using mainly the behavior from the past eruptions to kind of indicate what might happen moving forward. So very likely that there's some drop off in activity after a few hours or so. Here's another view. Okay, this is probably the view. Thank you, Amanda Jo, for sending this one. So this is looking, here's the power plant in the lower left corner. This is the road that was covered in February and in May and in March by lava flows. This is looking north towards Vogar, Reykjavik is off to the east, but you can see the lava flow here on the right side running to the west along the berm and advancing. And so we'll have to see, and here's another tongue just coming into view just above it. So we'll have to see where these go. Of course, we want to see these just continuing to follow their trajectory to the left, to the west. What we don't want to see is them moving into the foreground here. That would mean that they've somehow worked their way up and over the berm or breached it somehow. Yeah, someone says the fountains are looking higher again at the north end of the fissure. I thought it looked a little brighter there on one of the views, like that right there. That just, let's go back a little bit and see. Yeah, look at that, team. Like, look at this view. The camera hasn't moved at all, hasn't zoomed in. And this was about an hour ago. And even 38 minutes ago, not very bright. A little brighter there. Maybe they did move the camera a little bit. Yeah, they did. But still, just I'm looking at the brightness of that. Yeah, hard to say. I can't tell if they zoomed in or not there, but that seems to be a little bit brighter than it might have been a little bit ago. Yeah, our good friend Gylfi is very likely driving south from where he lives up near Akureyri. It's about a 5-ish hour drive. So, but there wasn't a whole lot of lead up to this, so he's probably not even halfway through that. So he may not get there until, well, it'll be quite late in Iceland, but he's probably several hours out until he can get there. How close is it to where they were building the berm? Well, the berm is in, let's find that view. The berm's right here. I'm pretty sure I can kind of just make that out. I can see the black outline of the older lava flows. And so the berm's right in here, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, and thanks for all the kind donations, friends. Much appreciated. Yeah, but this is, I enjoy doing this. This is, you're not having to twist my arm too much. We were going to go to the local brewery and do trivia night with some friends, but I got my 15-year-old going with my wife instead. You can see all the traffic along the road there looking to the north. Of course, those folks can't turn in towards the area. It's closed, but it looks like there's quite a bit of traffic there. And that may be what's keeping our good friend Johan from getting, I don't know where he was planning to access with the drone. He might be able to fly it from out here along the road. He definitely would have the range to get in here. So that's maybe what he may be doing, but I haven't heard from him in about an hour or so. So we'll have to see moving forward if he can get into position, if we can actually do the drone flight or not. It would be nice, but we'll have to see. Let's see here. So this, I'm captivated by this view because this is, I mean, in terms of human infrastructure, most at peril or most in danger in the immediate and near future. This is it. This is, we're going to see how this plays out here in the next bit. It seems like Grindavik is not at risk, at least at the moment. And the other thing, I guess the secondary thing to watch beyond this would be to see how that, if that flow and if that fissure extends to the north, to see how, you know, if that thing extends to the north. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. If it extends to the north, to see exactly how that plays out. Do we have lava heading towards the road or not? And those are some things to pay attention to. This lava flow is, it's moving along. You know, if we go back just a few minutes ago, so here we are about 10 minutes ago. Well, they didn't put their camera on it until fairly recently, but there it is, kind of about 10 minutes ago, and here we are now. So it does appear to be advancing slowly but steadily and coming across the road there. Um, yeah, so it does seem to be following. It looks like it's right on top of the older flows. So it does seem to be following the path of those older flows there. You can see some of the blue lights from some of the emergency crews and such, but there's the power plant in the bottom left corner. And then there's a secondary lobe that's just to the north of it that's moving along here too. Um, yes, we're now starting to see more of the expanse. It looks like the eruption's not slowing down much. It's still moving along quite easily. Here's a view. Yeah, they just zoomed in there. That's that lobe that we just saw that's coming around the corner. There's the power plant. This is from Thorbjörn, the hill to the north of Grindavik. And so we've got that view, which is pretty similar to that one. A close-up of the fissures, which is nice, but not particularly instructive when we're trying to see exactly where these things are going. Gylfi's getting his gear together and will be headed south after a short video update. Okay, so Gylfi will be our good friend at Just Icelandic is going to do some sort of update on his channel, and then he's going to start heading south. Brandon Helsley, do I still teach at CSI? Yes, I do. Semester just started Monday, so it's been a busy week. Let's see, can you address the venting gases and if they will cause an evacuation? Good question, Ray. Amanda Joe, you might be able to check quicker than I can which way the wind is currently blowing there. I thought it was coming out of the northwest, but I'm not sure. Northwest winds would be great because that would be blowing these gases largely to uninhabited areas, not over places where people are. So right now I'd say the volcanic gas hazard is probably pretty low and the winds are probably favorable. Boy, look how bright that looks. Oh wait, we're not live. Well, now we are. Look how bright that looks. Wow, that's just pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean, like 25 minutes ago, it was humming along, but now it's like really. So it's possible it's cranked up some of its output um, as well. Coming out of the northwest. Yeah, thank you. Glad I was. Wind is out of the north winds. Yeah, so that does take maybe some of the gases potentially into Grindavik, but the town's been evacuated, and so in terms of any sort of human hazard there, that's more or less negated with that. So winds shouldn't be much of a factor as they kind of blow these volcanic gases around. Um, so just kind of run through these again. Yeah, some of these fountains could be, yeah, some of those numbers we saw, like 700 feet, over 250 meters, for sure. Whoops, we just lost that one there. And then, yeah, this is kind of what we're watching here. Let's see, what do you good folks have to say here? Yeah, the wall of fire to the north is huge. It does probably look like the town is closer than it is, just with a little bit of like foreshortening and just the visuals here. We could, if we want to put some numbers on that. So the lava's coming around this hill and out to the road. Let's see how far that is, and we'll do it in miles and kilometers and make everyone happy. So yeah, it's about like 5 miles, almost 8 kilometers. So it's quite a ways away, even though it can look much closer with the webcams, the way they're kind of situated. How much magma was there piling up underground? Last estimate I saw was like 22, maybe up to 24 million cubic meters of magma. But of course, as we talked about, that's not likely to all erupt at once. The magma that it will be erupted will be predicated on gases in the system, how much pressure is in the system, and so we're not going to see all of that come up out of the ground. Certainly brighter. Yeah, I agree. I think, and at this point in the eruption, the best observations, the best data we can collect is exactly what we're doing. It's observational. It's watching the webcams and just kind of like seeing how things look here. There's that view there. So we're just kind of scrolling through the different views, just kind of checking it out. And the lava's still moving at a good clip here, as it is fed by these fountains, these vents. So the lava's coming out of the storage system in the subsurface, reaching the surface, coming out under pressure through these cracks, falling back down to the ground, still molten, and that's what's feeding these lava flows, which then are just following the topography, path of least resistance, which in this case largely takes the lava west and east. And west is not good because west is towards the power plant. But they've got they've done all they can, right? I mean, the either it'll be enough or it won't be enough. So we'll have to see going forward. Sorry to bug. They manually added a bunch of magnitude 2 quakes to the map now. So there's a little cluster here. The way this seismic data works, I believe, is the seismometers are detecting energy, but it needs to be reviewed typically by a seismologist. Sometimes you get background noise or other things that aren't really earthquakes, and so sometimes those get taken off the lists, sometimes things get added, sometimes magnitude numbers get adjusted a little bit. So thank you, Leonard, for your kind donation, and others. I know I've missed some folks. Maddie, Wayne, Elaine, thank you, Elaine. Hope you're doing well. MedTech, thank you all for your support of geology learning. This is about as exciting as it gets. And our good friend Johan is trying to get into a position where we can do a flight. Given how much traffic I was seeing out on this roadway, and I'm still seeing, that may have hindered his ability to kind of get into position very well. So we'll probably go for a little bit longer. I'm kind of thinking now, maybe I can have the best of both worlds. Can I live stream with you guys a little bit longer, and then maybe also make it to the little social function I have this evening in town? Of course, I'll be kind of not super helpful because I'll have my ears in the conversation, but my eyes probably watching this a little bit on my phone. But let's go for another at least half hour or so, see how this plays out, and see if Johan gets a hold of me or not. And then we might shut this down. We'll have to see how it goes. I don't know. We'll have to see how this kind of goes a little bit. But I might take off here and meet my wife and some friends for dinner. So let me just send her a quick text. Yes, you can all come to the social function. It's trivia night at Kodo Brewery in Twin Falls, Idaho. We reserved a table for 8, which is already full, so you might have to get your own table, but you're all welcome to come. But I want to give this the attention it's due. It's not, back in December when these were brand new, I think there was a lot more. They're still exciting, but I think it was maybe a little bit more exciting if I'm being totally honest. This is still exciting, and I mean, as we're looking at a shot right now of lava very close to a critical piece of infrastructure there. So I do want to be, give it the attention it needs. Okay. So thanks for understanding, folks. I want to try to stay with you as long as I can, but we won't be doing this for like 5 hours straight. I just sent my wife a text that said I may come a bit late, and she sent me a heart emoji. So that probably means that she would appreciate that. Yeah, the eruption will be here when I get back for sure. But let's go a little longer. It's 5:17 here. Um, the trivia night thing doesn't start till 6. So yeah, the eruption worked out pretty good timing wise. So you guys are funny. I love the live chat's great. Um, yeah, thank you all for being so understanding. Very much appreciated. Yeah, let's check through our webcams again. Let's look at the seismic data one more time. This view here really shows nicely, um, just that bright glow, that north end. I mean, for Grindavik, this is one of the best possible outcomes. The eruption was further to the north, and the energy and the propagation of the fissure is directed to the north. So for Grindavik, the town, this is all very good news. And for Svartsengi and the Blue Lagoon, it's still too early to say. So we can see a couple of these views here. And let's see, let's check in with Amanda Joe, who's got a couple things for me. Let's see, she says our good friend Gilfie is working to head south and said contact him tomorrow to see if he has any photos ready for you. Oh, he's such a kind gentleman. Awesome. I will do just that. Everyone's saying to refresh the live feeds you're showing as you're not current with them. Oh, I apologize, friends. Okay, let me go through each one of these. Make sure the red little light is on. That one is current. That one is now current. That one is now current. My fault there. That one's good. This one, oh, it just moved a little bit. Did you see that? When I went to live, there's where it was, and here's where it is right here. So it's creeping ever so closer to the roadway. This one, let me get that one up to live. Thank you, friends. And there's the live view of that one. So there we go. We got them pretty well up to date now. From the chat, Sarah Moore says, are those earthquakes to the north and the increased fountaining on the north end of the fissure an indication of possible further expansion to the north? Great question, Sarah. I'd say right now everything, it's definitely a possibility. We still have, when we see seismic activity, let's remember what an earthquake is. An earthquake is rock under pressure that is breaking. The rock is broken and shifted, and that releases seismic energy, and that's what an earthquake is. A lot of places, San Andreas Fault, it's all related to stresses built up by plate tectonics. Eventually the stress accumulates to the point of breaking. Obviously in Iceland and in this location right now, with an eruption that has just begun within the last few hours, a lot of this activity would be related to the movement of magma through these fractures, some of which are very narrow, pushing on the fractures, causing the fractures to widen, which breaks the rock and shifts it, maybe causing fractures to lengthen and get longer, and that may very well be what we're seeing here. So you can see the earthquakes kind of coming in here. There's the last hour, last 10 minutes. It's gotten a little quieter, but 10 minutes is not a big chunk of time. Last 30 minutes, you can see those earthquakes there. And way out here is a 1.94. So given that we're injecting magma into these rocks in the subsurface, the rocks surrounding them over maybe several kilometer region is likely to, this area is likely to be under pressure as well, and that could be generating these earthquakes. It does not necessarily mean the magma is going to be there or is already there. Notice how deep that one is. That one's like 7 kilometers down. So if the magma is going to move further to the northeast, what we're going to see is this clustering is going to advance as well. So if you see this clustering just kind of migrate like a pack of, whatever, mice or something in that direction, that may be more indicative. But these isolated quakes out by themselves, including this big one, including the big 4.1, now it's downgraded to a 4.1, are not necessarily in and of themselves indicative of something bigger like that. So, okay, back to the views. Make sure they're live. And what we're really watching is, this one, well, where's the view of the power plant? Maybe they've shifted the view a little bit there. All right, that one's not live. There we go. That's live. Too many webcams open. You can kind of see some of the blue lights there. Make sure that one's up to date. Okay, so here's some more information from Amanda Joe. There is now a significant lava flow from the north end of the fissure. The lava now surrounds Stora Stogafelt and is rapidly heading down towards the road out of Grindavik. Two large rivers of lava flow rapidly down to meet the road. The southern one goes through familiar paths south of Stora Stogafelt and will cross the road where it has been repeatedly broken by eruptions in recent months. Then there is another lava spread that has moved north of Stora Stogafelt. It will most likely hit the road somewhat further north than has happened before. So it sounds like, if I can put all those words into something here, is we've got a lot of the flows going this way, and this is exactly where the flow went in February, and it also went in March, and it went in May. So we've got a certain tongue of lava flowing down this path adjacent to the berm. But she says the lava now is completely surrounded this hill here, and that there's a tongue of lava that has moved north of Stora Stogafelt. So there's another one, because this fissure from this eruption happening now is further out here. So there's some lava flowing this way and will likely get to the road at some point. So while we have some of the lava on terrain that's already been covered with lava, we also have some excuse me, moving into virgin ground, if you will, areas where we haven't seen those lava flows previously. She's also got for me, and thanks Amanda Joe and our moderators for all your hard work. Super kind of you. A story here that let's see, lava flow is about 3 meters wide. So the police officer basically it says a police officer is saying that the eruption is similar in size to before, but the lava flow is more intense. Considerable lava flow is heading towards the road here and possibly towards the defenses at the Blue Lagoon. So, okay, thanks for sending that, Amanda Joe. Okay, back to the webcams. And let's just go through the webcams again, one by one. Yeah, I mean, you can see some of this lava still in here. Hopefully you guys can see this pretty well. It is booking. It is really moving quickly through some of these areas. Get these all up to live. Belinda wants to know if the new lava melts the old lava. The answer to that is basically no. You'd have to have that new lava in contact with the old lava for a very long period of time. The only time that really happens sometimes is with lava tube systems in the subsurface, where the lava is so insulated and so hot it can melt the rock below it. But basically, remember, if we put new lava over old lava, which is basically rock, it's cooling quickly in contact with that old lava. So it's really not even, and once you get just like a half an inch or so of material, of lava that cools in contact with that older flow, it kind of insulates the rest of the lava flow. So the real answer there is basically no. Very, very little to absolutely no melting of the old lava with the new lava. Is that dotted line north a road or water pipe? Oh boy, not sure which dotted line. Might be on this one. These dotted lines here are, I think they're like political boundaries, like districts, different areas of Iceland, if I remember right. Because when I go to my Google Earth and add borders, I get these same sort of lines. So these are just different regions. I bet Amanda Joe could answer, or one of our Icelandic folks could answer that better than I could. But I believe the dotted lines you're seeing here are, I don't think they're pipelines. I don't think it's any infrastructure. I think it's like a political boundary. Kind of think of it like a county line if you're from the States. Um, let's see. What else do we have here going on in the live chat? Oh, let me take you back to the good stuff. Sorry, friends. So, view there. Let's get it live. There we go. Looks like that flow's creeping ever closer. What happened to our zoomed in view that showed the power plant? That'd be nice to get that back. Um, let's just stay with this one for now. Let's see. Yep. Solar activity not a factor. Has anyone got a drone up? I haven't seen anyone with the drone up yet, but I've been kind of locked into the webcams since this thing started and whatever Amanda Joe's been able to relay to me. Chances of any phreatic activity from this eruption. I mean, we did see that a little bit with the last eruption. I would say probably pretty low. But we don't know. I don't know what the depth to the water table is. If there's a big enough conduit that can, if the lava can tap the groundwater, that may happen. I wouldn't expect that to happen early because we're bringing up so much magma from the subsurface that even if we are somewhat in contact with groundwater, the lava will tend to seal that off with its own pressure and the heat. And it's not until we drop the activity down a little bit that you might get some magma water interaction. So hard to say. Someone said there was a 3.3 that popped up somewhere. I don't see that. I can go ahead and refresh. Usually this thing updates as we go. Maybe it's in there somewhere. We can take off some of these. Yeah, don't see the 3.3, but maybe it'll pop up here in a second or something. Let's see, what else do we have here, team? Yeah, 3.3. Yeah, everyone's trying to get there. So if there aren't any drones up or whatever, everyone's just doing the best they can. Johan's trying to get into position. How close to the previous spatter cone is the new eruption? If you're talking about the May 29th spatter cone, this eruption, I believe, in looking at the Met Office map, cuts right through it. So there's the old May 29th spatter cone, the longest lived vent from that eruption. And if they've got this plotted up correctly, this new fissure is right through it or just on the flank of it. So thank you for that question, Christopher. Tim says, oh, no, I lost you. Where'd you go, Tim? Oh, the live chat moves quickly. Something about, I'm going to find where that was. Darn, I lost it. Sorry, Tim. Something about one of the cameras that moved well. Yeah, probably good to point out what Amanda Joe just said. Like if you are in Iceland and you're tempted by the allure of trying to get in close to this, it's not a good idea. The eruption is still very dynamic. The situation could change very quickly. And the last thing the Icelandic people and public officials need is tourists or residents, anyone in a dangerous place that may need rescue. The terrain out there is pretty rough. It looks flat, but it is ankle breaking terrain. It is not easy walking to get out there. There's a lot of moss. There's a lot of cracks in the rock. Hidden beneath the moss, even without all the lava and all the other things there, this is not the place to go for a 3 or 4 mile hike out to get close to this thing. So I can't emphasize enough how that is not a good idea, that people should stay where they are, view it from a distance, from whatever safety barricades have been established. If and when it's a little safer for people, then they'll allow people to get closer, like we did with the Fagradalsfjall eruptions. But right now it's just too dynamic, too much lava coming out. The fissure's still lengthening potentially, so just too many variables at play. So there's your public service announcement. Yeah, safety first. And safety is important. Um, okay, so another message from Amanda Joe. Let's see what we got here. Don't know if you left the link. Okay, so sorry. She says it's getting closer to the road quickly and sent me the webcam view that will be more helpful. Um, this is the one you sent me, Amanda Joe. Maybe they pan over to it at some point. These two are actually the same. Is that the right one? If it's a different one, just send me another one. They seem to have changed the camera view, she said. So hopefully we can find a view here soon that shows, that kind of helps a little bit, but the lava flow getting closer and closer to the road there. Um, and what I could maybe do here, folks, maybe this is a good compromise, and I don't know where folks are chiming in from. We probably have folks from North America, other places as well, Europe perhaps. Um, is Yeah, I might peel out of here in a little bit, in like half an hour, but then I can come back and maybe start up another live stream after our little dinner thing and do another little update here and see where things are at. So Australia's in the house. Wow, great. It's already Friday there, I'm sure. Yeah, thanks to all who've joined us here. Quick recap if you're just joining us from all over: Idaho, London, Utah, Colorado, Norway, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands. Excellent. Texas, California, UK. Thanks again for joining me. Things progressed pretty quickly here. I was getting ready to do a video update on Iceland, just kind of a recorded one like I typically do. And I noticed that there was a quick news item that came across that the town had been evacuated, that there was some changes in the borehole pressure at the power plant, that the earthquakes were kind of on an uptick. And so I quickly was started to look at the data, realized that something could happen very soon, and was going back and forth between, should I live stream and just kind of yap my way through it and hope something happens, or should I just do a recorded video? After a couple minutes of doing that, decided I would do a live stream, and in the process of getting it all ready and trying to get it up and running, the eruption began. So the eruption began about 9:26 Iceland time, so that was a couple hours ago. And is that right? Yeah. Yeah, about 2 hours ago. And it began in an area similar to where we've seen the December, the February, the March, and the May eruptions. So further to the north, not close to the town. The town is evacuated, as is the Blue Lagoon and the power plant. But the big threat right now is this eruption quickly lengthened. So the fissure is upwards of about 4 kilometers in length. Here's a quick map, if you're just jumping on, that's from the Met Office, that shows the length of the fissure. Here's the power plant. Here's the Blue Lagoon, Silingarfelt. Here's one of the hills nearby. Here's another hill, Stora Stogafelt. And we've since seen the lava. It's about right here. It's approaching the old roadway. It's probably nearly up to, or it's close to the berms, these defensive berms that go around the power plant area. But there's also another lobe, because we have the fissure was lengthened to the north appreciably, that we also have a lobe of lava, a channel of lava that's moving to the west around the north side of Stora Stogafelt. And so that could potentially take out this roadway. And then if this fissure keeps lengthening, we might even end up with some of this lava headed due north or to the northwest. And so those are some of the things we're watching so far. So the main thing is watching this tongue of lava here. Here's Silingarfelt. You can sort of make out a bit of Stora Stogafelt there, and to see exactly where this lava flow goes moving forward. And so We're trying to get a drone up in the air. Johan is on his way. I guess he might be bummed out if I'm at dinner when he finally gets there, but he can get it up either way. So you can see how bright this north end of the fissure is. It's still really pumping out tremendous amount of lava. We don't have any really solid estimates on the output other than some preliminary estimates. Here's this tongue of lava that's closest to the power plant in Blue Lagoon, but here's this secondary one. This is the one I think that goes around the north side of Stora Stogafelt that's also advancing to the west and eventually could possibly impact the roadway here. So, okay, Manda Joe's got something else for me. She's so awesome. Let's see what she's got here. Okay, got to get to the right tab here. So I think she's got a better view that will be helpful to us. Let's see here if this is a good webcam view that will help us kind of see things. Okay, here's a different view. I'm trying to figure out where this is from Sandholt. Where's Sandholt? Someone in the live chat will know for sure. Yeah, not sure what this one's showing, like what the view is here. This might be, oh, I think I know where this is. I think, so this, I believe, is east of the fissure, which makes sense because you can see how much gas is kind of coming in with this. So this is more like towards the Fagerdalsfjord area looking back. She says to go back about 17 minutes to see the last view shown of approach to the road. On this camera, Amanda Joe, or on a different one? 17 minutes. Okay, that would be like here-ish. Maybe I've got the wrong camera. Yeah, Sandholt's to the east. Oh, she gave me a different one. Sorry. All right, let's go to this link. Okay, so this is the one she's saying to go back about 17 minutes. Oh, I see what we got here. Okay. So here you can see it approaching the road. We might kind of fast forward this a little bit. Yeah, but this shows it pretty nicely. Here's the power plant down here, and this shows it approaching the road. But then apparently they move the camera away from that view. So this is that same camera we've been using, this one of these ones here, but they've swung it around to look at the vent, but you can see it back here. You see some of the emergency vehicles, power plant, and those two tongues of lava coming into the west. So thanks for sending that. Okay, so we've got that one too. I feel like I probably have some of the same ones up potentially. These fountains on the far north end seem to be pretty high. Hard to say for sure. That seems definitely be where the most activity is focused. You can see some of the cars here and that tongue of lava there. Just really bright, just incredible glow there. And let's get this one up to live. There we go. That one's not live yet either, so here we go. Okay, good stuff all around. How we doing? Live from Iceland. Okay, someone's saying to look at a different camera. Let me try a different one here. You guys look at that. Let's see if we can get one of the other. Live from Iceland, cameras up and going here. This one. See if this one's going to be helpful. And okay, here's the view we want. Thank you, viewer. I can't remember who sent me this, but this is exactly what we'd hoped for. So there's a much closer view and a better view of the road and the flow that's very steadily encroaching and approaching it. And it looks like this back lobe or lava channel might be getting bigger, so it might have a bigger supply of lava to it. I don't know how long they've been on this view, how far we can go back, about to there maybe. Let's just kind of play around with this for a second here. So there it is there, and then if we move forward to now, it just takes up so much more. And I don't know if that's additional volume or it's just spread out more potentially, but pretty interesting there. Question from Sharon. Would it make a spatter cone again? Well, we're not going to see spatter cones until this dies down a little bit. Let me actually plug this one in there. So once the volume and supply of lava starts waning considerably, and instead of a long fracture with more or less continuous eruptions of lava coming out of it, once it starts dying down, what it'll eventually do is it'll start kind of concentrating in just a few areas. So it won't be this wall of lava as we see here. There'll just be maybe a half a dozen or so places that are active, and then those will eventually most likely evolve into spatter cones. And so it's too early in the eruption to see a spatter cone just yet. We've got to kind of wait until things progress and it dies down a little bit. So, but that's a great question. Thank you. Let's see, another question. Let's see where'd it go? From Donnie, could it expand southward towards Hagafeld considering the fractures that just formed in the hill? Well, those fractures, while they looked quite ominous and uh, pretty imposing, and they're not going to be on this Google Earth, but they're further down here near Hagafeld. While we saw those in some of the recent drone flights and stuff in this area, there's nothing to suggest completely that those fractures are connect into the subsurface to the magma dike and the sort of the plumbing system that exists there. And so I would say right now, the way that this eruption is sort of panned out, that would be a very low likelihood, low probability. Right now, the movement in the system has been primarily to the north in terms of lengthening. It would be very odd for it to kind of reverse course and start lengthening to the south at the same time. So, yeah, that would be my answer to that. Clean up a few emails here. Yeah, thanks for all your support, folks. And Patsy, I know I'm missing all the names, but the moderators catch you guys, I'm sure. Donnie, all those who have generously contributed to everything we're doing here. Thanks so much. Brian, are more of these eruptions going to happen if you know who gets back into the office? Oh, brother. Good stuff. Yeah, and apparently our good friend Gilfie is on his way down there, and so we'll probably catch up to him a little bit tomorrow. Bucks Mux wants to know, can you show the elevation map towards Vogar? I live there and a little bit concerned. Yeah, understandably so. So if we look at, let's start with the Google Earth and then we can go to the Met Office map. So if we assume our furthest north vent is maybe somewhere, a little bit to the east and north of Stora Stogafeld, maybe somewhere out here. That's about an elevation of about, and I'm sorry, this is all in feet, so about 244 feet. Um, Vogar here sits nearly at sea level at about 18 feet. Um, and it doesn't look like, I mean, there's not much clear topography through here, but it is a downhill slope in that direction. Um, it looks like though the good news here, and I'm just doing this kind of on the fly, is that it's higher topography here, just south of Vogar, than it is over here. So my preliminary, just off the cuff analysis would be that if we did have lava coming out this far north, it's still going to have a good turn to the northwest and to the west. It's not going to, I don't think it's going to go straight beeline to the north into that area. I think it's going to mainly move off in this direction here. Just sort of, as I sort of scan this east to west, you can see that the lowest elevations maybe like right in here, but over here it's a little different. This is actually some older lava flows that have some built up topography. Um, so yeah, and there's lots of places in here for it to pond. So I think it's way too early to be super concerned about that. Let's look at the Met Office map though, which will probably be a little bit more insightful. And unfortunately, it doesn't go any further north in here, but we can see a few contour lines here. And so remember, as you look at these contour lines, these squiggly lines, the direction the lava would go, all things being equal, is at a perpendicular angle to these. So in this case, if there was lava here, it would move pretty much in this direction. But it would turn over here. So you kind of have a little bit of a movement that way. So I know that's probably not super satisfying, but that's just, yeah, you should stay. I don't think you necessarily need to stay up all night and watch this thing. But I would definitely check in the morning and see, has the fissure advanced? Has the lava spread out any further? So hopefully that's helpful to you, and good luck there. You're welcome. Any interesting deformation info? Asked William. Not that I've seen. The power plant is kind of, I'm sure, dealing with lots right now, but I don't think so. Let's see, what else? Anything else here? How tall do you think the fountain is reaching? Well, we've got some reports that it was up to, and this is from Jim in the UK, 750 feet, so 220-ish meters, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's pushed a little higher, up to maybe 1,000 or so. So we'll just have to see moving forward. Okay, Manda Joe just sent me some drone footage. So let's take a quick look at this and see. This is from one of the local stations here. Okay, so here is, and this is from Horder Krislifsen. So we've looked at some of his photos before, so I want to give proper credit to him. And this has gone to one of the news outlets here. So let's just take a quick look at this. But first, 5 seconds of advertising. Okay. So here's his drone footage. Pretty sure that's Silingerfeld here, most likely. There's the fissure. So we're coming in from that was coming in from the west, kind of to the east. So he's got some nice footage here. Kind of brief, but yeah, this is just what the news agency is showing. So, but still, something's better than nothing for sure. Let's see where we're at here. Okay, well, oh, and then there's, let's see, we've got another update here from someone. Let's see, here's a little bit of the eruption is about 4 kilometers long, but the lava does not threaten Grindavik. Similar to the last 2 eruptions, and people are concerned about the pipeline that runs into Svartsengi, the cold water pipe, but the pipe is protected and has withstood stress in previous eruptions, but it's still of concern. Lava flow is further north than before. If the speed continues, it'll eventually reach the rolled, and the cold water pipe in question may be at risk. So we've got a couple pieces of infrastructure there to kind of keep monitoring. So, okay, well, let's do one quick last run through the webcams and make sure they're live. And then also we'll check the earthquakes again really quick as well. And I think some of these are the same. Yeah, these two are the same, so I could probably close one. That's just still so bright in that one view. Interesting. This one's not live. There we go. And then let's check the earthquakes real quick. Last 30 minutes, nothing, just one magnitude 2 and some 1s, but they're all kind of where you'd expect them to be. Actually, these are a little bit further north. Here's Storastogafelt, so these are a little bit further north. But just because we have the earthquakes and the magmas maybe propagating and pushing and creating earthquakes further to the north, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to propagate upwards and manifest itself as an eruption. But something to keep an eye on. And some of these are, shallow enough that, 2 kilometers, that I'd probably keep an eye on them. Looks like a new one just popped up right here, perhaps. So the earthquakes are worth kind of watching moving forward. Time, we'll have to see how those play out. So, and then, yeah, then there's our map, of course. So, okay, so I think what I'm going to do, and I apologize for leaving some of you hanging here, but I think I'm going to shut down the live stream. And my moderators, don't feel obligated to jump back on if and when I do jump on here in a few hours. So, Manda Joe, I know you stay up late anyway, but I do not want you to feel obligated to have to wait on me and jump on if I jump on. If there's no moderators on when I jump on, I can handle it. Not a big deal. So, but I will try to jump back on after I head downtown to this dinner thing with my wife and some friends. And so I will keep track of things in the interim. And if anything big happens and Amanda Joe's still up, I know she'll let me know. And I will jump back on in a bit because it's still early enough here. It's almost 6 o'clock here in Idaho. And so I wouldn't be burning the midnight oil to jump back on at like 8 o'clock or so. So thank you all for joining me. Again, I'm Geology Professor Shawn Willsey. Big thank you so much to our moderators, Lisa and Susan and Amanda Joe, for their great work here in keeping the live chat going. Amanda Joe for providing me so much good information and the views of the webcams. I'm going to leave all my tabs open here so that if I come back up to my office here in a bit and start live streaming, that everything will be ready to go. So hopefully, perhaps I suppose I will see some of you here in a few hours after I go down to our little social thing. So thanks again for all your support of the channel. Appreciate it. If you hear about anything big going on that I should know about, feel free to shoot me an email. But I'll go ahead and shut down the live stream. Thank you all for this great geologic community, this learning community that we've put together. Much love, appreciated. And we will hope for the best in Iceland. We will continue to hope that the lava continues to dazzle us while also not threatening seriously any of the infrastructure there that's so critical to the good people of Iceland. So with that, I will sign off for now, and I will catch you at the next live.